14th meeting of the Milton Conservation Commission. The commissioners are appointed by the Board of Selectmen to implement the rules and regulations of the State Wetlands Protection Act, as well as the Milton Town Bylaw. As a matter of formality, we always introduce ourselves. My name is John Kiernan.
Michael Blute.
Arthur Doyle.
Craig McNaught.
Kathy Bowen.
We have a recorder going here, so when anyone speaks, we ask that you introduce yourselves so that we have a record of the proceedings. First on the agenda, notice of intent, Neponset River Stormwater, Granite Avenue. Anyone here for that? We understand that they've requested a continuation of a site walk. This is at the entrance ramp in that vicinity, getting onto the expressway off of Granite Avenue. So that site walk will be scheduled in May, sometime after the May 14th meeting. They're putting some new stormwater treatment plan in place to take some of the surface runoff from the expressway, and rather than having dumped directly into the Neponset, they're going to try to clean it up before it's discharged. Second on the agenda is Pine Tree Brook Stream, NEPRA, Neponset River Valley. Anybody here from that? Sorry, guys. Kathy, do you know, are they looking for anything in particular?
That's the dams. Unquity.
Right.
It's a sidewalk.
It's a site walk. We're going to schedule in February, but we're unable to.
Saturday.
All right, that's Saturday site walk?
Saturday.
Do we have a time? We're going to have to be very careful about time. We've got a lot of places to go. And one of the issues that came up earlier tonight was whether or not we need another aspect for a public meeting here at Town Hall. So do you have a time or a schedule?
I had a schedule that we would.
Oh, what did I do with it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Do you have it? Oh, you have it. Yeah. The proposal was to start at Randolph and cycle up through Hillside and then down Unquity and onto Canton.
Okay.
So we're basically doing
Yeah,
one
that
straight
makes
path.
sense.
All right. So the Pine Tree Brook would be number 2, and where would we meet on that one? At the dam on Unquity Road, where Unquity and Highland separate?
Yes.
Isn't Hillside number 2 and 3?
Well, that's what we were discussing. You thought Hillside was better, but I think he's right. Unquity, by the rink will be an easier.
Yeah,
way
but
to
then we're
go.
coming back to go to Hillside, then going the other way.
Well, that's right.
So if we start at Randolph and then go up to Hillside and then come down Unquity and then go on to Canton, then we're just going one direction.
Okay.
All right.
Right? I mean,
We'll end up having to do this at the end, and we'll probably try to put it on the website so that people can understand the order, because our site walks take place usually on Saturdays. We begin at 8 a.m., and this Saturday, the 18th, we'll begin the order of site inspections. We'll try to post that on the website.
Yes.
But in any event, the Pine Tree Brook Stream project will be one of them, and that will take place at the intersection of Highland Street and Unquity Road at some time in the morning, probably either between 8 and 9 o'clock. Next on the agenda.
That'll be later,
It'll be
because
later.
we're doing
It'll probably be
Hillside,
like
that'll be
10
number
o'clock.
3 on our list, John, so more like probably
so
10,
Randolph,
10:30 or so.
Hillside.
Yeah. Yeah. Take a while.
All right. Thank you. Next on the agenda is notice of intent 1424 and 1426 Canton Avenue, Eustis Estate. Mr. Sheffield, good evening, sir. Would you identify yourself?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I'm Attorney Bob Sheffield. I am very pleased to represent Historic New England, who acquired the Eustis Estate, and we'll be turning that over as a museum. They currently manage 36 properties within the New England area. This will be their 37th property, and they are all open to the public and made very much a part of the local community. We are here tonight because we wish to create a new driveway entrance, which is near a wetland, and we also are going to be putting in a 6-inch water main for fire protection and for attachment to the house. On the driveway entrance, that also had to be approved by the planning board and by the tree warden Both of those approvals are in place, and we finally need the authorization from your committee, the Conservation Commission, to undertake that effort. I have with me tonight Ben Havoc, who is a conservation specialist for Historic New England, and Steve Garvey, principal of Semiotis Engineering. Steve will give the information to the board.
Thank you very much, Bob. Steve, welcome.
Great. Should I get the microphone or should I just
I don't think so, but
Great.
is that okay?
Great at it.
You are now a rock star.
There we go. So my name is Steve Garvin, professional engineer. And thank you for seeing us tonight. Just to orient everyone, this plan shows Canton Avenue. This is the gatehouse, which is also 1424 Canton Ave. This is the mansion, which is 1426. Back here is Chestnuts Run. The existing drive goes underneath and through the gatehouse. What we've done in relocating is looked at site distance and also just accessibility, because getting through the gatehouse is an issue for emergency vehicles and such. So we've identified wetlands, and there's a wetland report in the filing. And so there's wetlands on the 1452 property next door where there isn't any work being done. Through here, and this 80-acre site basically goes back almost to the Blue Hills. The wetlands have been identified. The buffer zones are shown in this blue through here. The kind of limit of work is in red. The dark blue line is bank. It's not wetland. We can look at that with the site walk. And the work we're proposing is within bank and the bank buffer. This is the wetland buffer, so we're actually staying out of that with our work. What is being proposed is to bring that new entrance in. There's an existing catch basin with a side entrance there that bank conveys water, goes into that catch basin and ties into the drainage system in Canton Ave. What we're talking about is relocating and actually fortifying it. There's a lot of siltation and a lot of silt that works its way through there. All the drainage off of this will be captured in the pavement and not actually tributary to any of the resource areas on site. So that's what's being proposed. We've gone through the stormwater management policy and illustrated how the project meets the 11 standards, and I guess for now that's kind of a preliminary walkthrough. If there are any questions in clarifying.
Steve, I do have a question. I noticed on at least 2 occasions you indicated that isolated wetlands were non-jurisdictional under the town bylaw, and I don't agree with that. And my question is whether or not you've designated those colored areas. Do those indicate state wetlands? And
state and isolated. So everything.
Isolated.
What I was saying is jurisdictional is we're staying out of buffer zones from all those jurisdictional areas. The one piece that's jurisdictional, we believe, from our wetland scientists that we're working in, is the bank that conveys the water.
All right, I see the K1 through K11
Yep.
and the J1, but can you tell me which ones are the isolated ones that you were referring to in the report?
I believe it's the wetland science report. I believe it's these 2 wetlands.
Okay. All right, now, when you say it's non-jurisdictional, does that change whether you're altering wetlands?
It does not.
Okay.
It does not. When I was saying we were staying outside jurisdictional area, so then in the wetland scientist report, she referred to them that way, but we're not working in the buffers of those also, or within the non-jurisdictional buffers or the bylaw wetland. So there's no work done in any of those resource areas that were identified in that report.
Okay. All right,
Tell
thank
me
you.
on the map, where is the new driveway coming out exactly?
So the new driveway is coming out right here, adjacent, about 30 feet off of the gatehouse, and at this point is where it joins in. This is the existing drive. So it ties back in basically as close as it can. It was looked to be brought as close as it could to the gatehouse while still respecting its historic architecture.
So the driveway is coming in from Canton Avenue in this new section and then going up behind the existing driveway?
Ties into the existing driveway right here. The existing drive currently comes through under the gatehouse.
Yes.
There's parking here and then turns and works its way around. So as opposed to coming through, we're just coming along the side and tying back in.
Okay, because you seem to be within, what is the blue line you're indicating, the dotted blue line?
This dotted blue line is the 100-foot buffer off of that bank.
Okay.
So it is a resource, and we're working within 25 feet and 100 feet of that. And we've identified that. We're actually filling about 17 feet of bank to move it over. That bank feeds into that catch basin I was talking about that has that side entrance to it. So what we've done is we've provided a new, much more structural and side catch basin entrance that will allow the water to be transmitted in the same way it currently does.
And what's the definition of bank? I mean, is that a resource area?
It is.
So how much, what's the alteration? What's the square footage of alteration?
So 17 linear feet bank is per linear foot, and that's detailed in the report. And then I think there's 2,700 square feet of 25-foot buffer zone of that resource area, according to the bylaw of that 25-foot buffer zone, and then about, I think, 7,500 to 8,000 square feet in a 100-foot buffer of that.
One of the issues that we have under the town bylaw is whether or not you've done an alternatives analysis. Is there a way to avoid infringing upon our 25-foot non-disturbance zone?
So we've identified, and we can go through with the site walk illustrating the other places we've looked at for having the curb cuts, basically.
Can you show us there?
Sure. So we examined if this existing curb cut could be reused. We examined coming on the other side, and because of site distances and what would have to be disturbed, that was not. And then Chestnut's Run was also examined, which has a very steep end at the end and has horrible site distance.
Yeah.
What do you mean site distance?
So site distance is there's two site distances. One is if you're there in your car and looking left or right to go out into the road, there's a certain distance required based on the speed limit of 30 miles per hour. And these are all well under what is considered safe by AASHTO, which is the federal regulations. The other is if someone was coming out and cars working their way to and from, seeing a car pulling out, and those sites were also, especially Chestnut's Run, was well below what is recommended by AASHTO federally.
Does the curb cut require a state permit?
It does not. One of the required permits is the scenic road, because there's a stone wall through there, and that was approved by the planning board and the tree warden and the scenic road commission on last Thursday.
Right.
And what about trees? Are you removing trees to put this driveway in?
There are, I think, 4.
There are 3 trees that are in the area of the roadway that will be affected, and the tree warden gave approval for that. I think there's some wooded area that will be also affected to build the driveway itself that's on the property.
All right, we'd probably want some kind of a, to the extent that it's jurisdictional, we would want a survey as to what we're losing, because that actually goes into our alternatives. I did understand what you said about the safety aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what size caliper? We did survey down to, I think, a 4 or 6 inch caliper tree, if what would go in there. Is there a certain...
Under the planning board rules, a tree is something that is 4 caliber or greater within the town of Milton.
Good for the planning board. This is the Conservation Commission.
First,
What tree I just bought, remember?
So absolutely, we can identify if there are trees smaller than that, and I'm just curious if there's a certain size.
You've done the survey over
Absolutely.
4 inches and above?
Yes.
Okay, that's probably sufficient for us.
Sure.
I agree.
Good move by the planning board.
Yeah. And what kind of trees, do you know?
I'm not the landscape architect, so I could tell you there are trees.
We'd like to know that.
We could definitely have
And
that.
we'll try to either replicate them or do some better.
Absolutely.
Basically.
Could
I-
you, I'm sorry, go
No,
ahead.
no, you go.
Can you explain further the alternatives analysis to the entrance to the north? You kind of made a couple statements about difficulty, but you really didn't explain what was intended. Because when I look at the drawing, it's not obvious to me that that's not functional or not a reasonable alternative.
Actually, Michael, I can even address that.
Sure.
You know, that's, when you look at the Suffolk Resolves house, it's on the
Sure.
right-hand
Yep.
side. And the steep, that driveway, it's the one that has a big bucket of sand right there.
Right.
Because it's so steep, I mean, it's absolutely not safe for anyone. I don't know how people go up and down it, so.
I'm just looking at the
that's-
contours on here, and they don't look like there's a significant change in the contours
Oh.
on the
Off the
site.
road itself, it drops off a good amount.
Oh, it does.
So there's a big retaining wall, stone wall, that you can see when you're on the other side of how it drops off.
So it'll be obvious when we're on site.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, you'd see
Yeah.
it.
And
Yeah.
the other thing historically is also, the thought is, this is the existing view, you come in, you see the mansion and everything, and Historic New England can discuss at the site walk too, their mission and what they're trying to preserve and replicate of the experience of entering the.
One of the factors that was considered by Historic New England is, if you're familiar with going up Canton Avenue and you look through the gatehouse, you see the, beautiful vista of the mansion, the Eustace Mansion. And that we have similar sight lines here, that coming in, we want to give the people the maximum opportunity to see the entire beauty of the place. So that, that's a factor.
To the extent, and I know you're measuring bank in linear feet, but are the trees that you're removing coming from a resource area?
No, they're outside. The bank is really a well-defined bank. It's really a drainage ditch of allowing the outlet of what's running down the hill, and some overflow from the wetland works its way through there. It does not run year-round. It only runs. Right now would be a great time to see it running, I think, with the snow melt and everything else. Our wetland scientists will be there also to discuss the performance standards, and I think that's one of the keys, obviously. We need to illustrate to the commission that we would be meeting performance standards and what we're doing from that perspective.
Is there a replanting plan?
Yes.
There is throughout the campus, as far as in that immediate area. I think one of the things we're concerned with is obviously some of the sight lines, but there is a planting plan from
Now you lost me on sightlines, because I thought you were talking about a safety factor when you're exiting or entering off of Canton Avenue.
So the sight lines are taken from a distance 13 feet back from the distance, from the intersection of where it joins where the curb comes in, and that's what, we all know you creep up and are actually closer to where you look, but when you have to define them, it's a 13-foot back distance, so that's why we're looking to keep that area clear.
How long is the new driveway before you tie in? I mean, I understand you're coming in off of Canton Avenue, but what's the
Sure, so
linear
this is 50
distance?
scale, so you're talking about 50 to 60 feet.
And that's it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good.
So you said 13 feet is the modification to the existing?
13 feet if we have to take that
No.
measurement.
I'm talking about the modification of the bank.
Bank is about 17.
About 17 feet.
Yeah.
But as I look at the drawing, it's not apparent that the amount that you're taking out doesn't appear to be that much on the drawing. Is that correct? I mean, and it's all about accommodating the new catch basin.
That's correct, for the most part.
You're basically backing it up to be able to make the radius.
Yep.
And you're saying that
We're tying it right
you're
at that
backing
point.
that up 17 feet.
Yes.
Okay, and we'll be able to walk that when we see the
Yep.
site. Okay.
On Saturday, would you have the new planting plan for the whole campus?
Yeah, we can have that.
That would be good.
Great.
Any other questions from commissioners?
I can remember, some of us are old enough to remember, there was supposed to be a tree donated to the Conservation Commission,
By whom?
Barton.
Different estate.
This is a different estate. This is a different estate.
Yeah.
This is the Eustace estate, and then next to that is the Quinn estate, former Attorney General, and then next to that is Bartow.
All right.
We'll get your tree. We'll find the tree.
Find me a tree.
She's in the nursing home. You better speak to her quickly.
All right.
The tree?
Any abutters that would like to ask a question, make a comment? Members of the public that would like to make a statement? Yes, come forward and introduce yourselves, please. Mr. Jeffries, welcome.
I'm Marjorie Jeffries, 1268 Canton Avenue. And my question is, maybe I need new glasses or sunglasses, but would you show me exactly where the new driveway folds into the old driveway? And then it goes up the house, up to the house and the regular path.
Do you have the next sheet, the 3-2? Because this is very clear, it's an enlarged area of that, and I think it'd make it clear for people to understand.
My
Are you able to see
microphone
that, Mrs. Jeffries? Did you see that?
So this line that I'm kind of throwing through here is the existing driveway, and it's challenging as quickly as possible to basically replicate exactly whatever you want.
So where do you think you're going to put the parking lot? Because there has to be a parking lot for all these accommodations.
Well, there's parking for the Historic New England. This will be an office for them, and that's what's being proposed at this point. And then the parking for people visiting the mansion will be up here, which is pretty close to, if you know where the apple orchard is.
Yes.
In that location.
Well,
Further in.
that's
a big deal.
there's been a lot of controversy about that among the neighbors, because that's right next to the Chestnut Run.
Well, this
And
is
you-
Chestnut Run.
Yes.
So it's adjacent on this side. And so these are the wetland buffers. So that,
When you say the wetland buffers, can you point to the 100-foot buffer?
this is the 100-foot buffer. And
So
this is
the parking
proposed
lot would be outside of our
crushed stone edge,
jurisdiction?
that's
Yes.
right.
Or do you appreciate that, Mrs. Jeffries?
Well, yes, but I thought that the neighbors had made it plain that they didn't want that. They didn't want the parking lot to be there.
Now, I think, Margie, there's always been parking there, but just in a smaller,
No,
Next to the
there
house.
hasn't,
there's always been a little parking back here.
Well,
just
yes.
a little section.
yes.
So it looks like it's about 3 times what it was, but there were always cars parked here. That's that area.
So there's going to be a new driveway north of the house, or I should
Yes.
say,
Yes, there will be,
to that parking area.
to the parking area.
One thing I noticed, though, if you're going to do an extra parking, there certainly needs to be trees around there, so you're not parking in direct sun. I assume the planting plan will show
And the
that.
planting plan illustrates that, yes.
Okay.
All right, do you have any other questions, Mrs. Jeffries? I just want to make sure you understand our jurisdictional limitations
Yes.
for the parking area. Legitimate comment, and it's one to be addressed, I guess, by the Historic New England. But I'm not sure that we can render any assistance in that area.
Well, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Jeffries. I know there was somebody else that wanted to be heard. Yes, ma'am, come forward, please.
Hi, my name is Suzanne Moot. I live across the street from Marge at 1269 Canton Avenue, although there's, half a mile of road, of Quarry Lane between the houses, but technically we're across the street. Marge addressed one of the issues that I was kind of curious about, and that was what that mustard-shaped blob was that nobody was talking about. I was going to ask what that was. And if it's not a conservation, I have 2 questions. One is, if it's not a Conservation Commission issue, to form a parking lot, and frankly, for how the property itself is going to be used overall, my question is, whose jurisdiction is it? And the second question is, I assume you guys have to take down some wall in order to build that new driveway?
Yes, indeed.
How wide a space will you have to take down?
We are removing 62 linear feet and relocating 12 feet, and,
In addition to the 62?
no. In other words, we're going to take out 62, then we're going to put 12 feet so that it will,
Is it on the drawing right in front of
Back
you?
in, yeah, so it's to create the reading, it's back in, that's the 12 feet that's coming back in.
so we're going to take these and
To 12,
go around
and
here.
looking at it to
The
not
house
go into
already
the
has
resource area.
this, so it's going to be balanced off. And then 3 trees that are close to the road are going to be removed.
And, yeah, and I guess my final comment relative to the trees is, there are an awful lot of trees in that part of town. I know, I own a bunch of them. I'm personally not particularly concerned about trees that are 4 inches or 5 inches, but there are a lot of big, old trees, and they are things that we should make sure that we endeavor to save, because it takes a long time to get those guys back.
And that's,
Sure does.
and that's one of the big reasons why we've looked at this as
Sure.
opposed to some of the other ones. You'll see there's significant trees, and that's why, even though it's not in jurisdiction, the rain garden was placed, everything's going to be this place. We worked hard with the landscape architect to avoid the root systems, to preserve those large trees, to be able to do that stormwater management at that point.
And I would also say that Historic New England is in the business of preservation, and the trees and the landscape are a vital part of that whole area. The first thing we did when we bought the land was to do an inventory of all the trees in the estate. And we definitely are, planning to preserve as many as possible.
So the jurisdictional question?
Well, we have, Arthur, you can address that, it's in your hand.
It's planning board.
Planning board?
Well, I'm not sure that the planning board, though, goes to the parking lot. The planning board is considering the curb cut and the removal of the linear.
And what about the usage of the property as well?
Planning board should be the introduction of a parking lot that didn't exist before.
It's not on their agenda, though. Bob, do you know?
Pardon me?
Because we've got a planning board agenda here, and they were considering on April 9th.
Yes,
Apparently, they considered the removal of 62 linear feet of stone wall
yes,
and removal of certain trees.
yes.
But I don't see on their agenda that they considered the placement of the parking lot.
No, that is not within their jurisdiction.
So who does, and/or the usage of the property? I mean, I am also old enough to, in fact, when we first moved to town, it was Eustace Bartold.
Yes,
Before the
yes.
Twins bought the property. One of the things that I know is important to everybody in the neighborhood is how the property is going to be used. And I have heard that there are going to be sort of major social events with some regularity. And I, as a citizen, maybe that's something the town wants to decide is okay, but I would kind of like there to be some sort of a process to say, what are the plans, and how will they be handled, and how is the neighborhood affected before folks can go forward. So my question to you guys, and I know you're much more knowledgeable about the town than I am, is who does get to have that oversight?
It could well be the zoning board, because if they're renting it out for weddings and
Yes.
receptions and whatnot, it might be a commercial venture that would be outside the scope of their charitable duties and responsibilities. But
And
I
that-
think that's a zoning issue, but that's just my gut reaction. I don't have any official say on that.
So will this whole process, by its very nature, go to the ZBA, or does somebody need to put their hand up and say, hey, we ought to take a look at this?
This will be going to the ZBA.
Okay. So,
You
and,
have to go to CBA.
Okay.
Right, but that, it's a very good point, because the size of the parking lot might not be related to the workers at Historic New England. It might be related to the number of people coming to the wedding.
That would be my take on it.
Right.
And that's why I was raising the issue.
Good point.
Thank you.
Good
All
point.
right, thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much. Any other speakers? Come forward, sir. Thank you.
My name is John Seidman. I live at 1350 Canton Avenue. I'm in a butter. We live right behind the Suffolk Resolve House. You can sort of see it in the top left-hand corner. Yeah. We live in the top left-hand corner. I have a question about, maybe I misheard. Did you say you're going to put in a 6-inch water pipe?
Yes.
Can you show us where that's going to go?
Here, and actually it's winding around just at the root zone of the sugar maple that's right there, and worked its way up. The water line is this blue line. Comes up.
Is it going to lose any trees?
No, not for the water line.
What did you say about the root system, though, for the
It's
sugar
been
maple?
to keep outside the white stick, which is very.
Are you comfortable? Okay, thank you. Any other thoughts or comments? You always have a thought or comment, sir.
Mr. Chairman, good evening, members, good evening. I'm James Mullen Jr. I live right here at the corner of Canton Avenue and Dollar Lane. I looked up to see when my father built the house down the street where I grew up at 1355 Canton Avenue in 1952. And I lived at 1355, 1365, and for the past 34 years, I've been at 1475 Canton Avenue. I don't need that. I've been at 1475 Canton Avenue for 34 years.
You're on TV.
You're on television. I don't care. No one likes change any less than I do. But we're talking about an 80-acre parcel, Mr. Chairman. We can't get along on 80 acres, we're in trouble. I'm here to support this application and to welcome these new neighbors to our neighborhood. I've been a resident there, as I say, across the street since 1952. So I support their application fully. And that's why I'm here. I'm 1/10 of a mile from the entrance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mullen.
Now, maybe I'm missing it, but I'm not seeing any plan that shows exactly where the driveway ties into the existing driveway. Am I missing that? Because normally I would.
3-2.
This end, right here is the existing. Okay.
Oh, now you're getting
Or
into,
the elbow, basically, is a good way to
now you're getting into folklore.
All right, any other thoughts, comments, questions from members of the public? Hearing none, does the applicant assent to a continuance until Saturday for site walk? All right,
Yes.
the same
What
issue.
time are the time that's on the website?
Kathy, can you place that, because you're going to have to orchestrate this.
And we'll figure out which is the best one.
All right, but it will be, for members of the public, we will visit the site for an inspection on Saturday morning, the 18th of April. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Does Historic New England know who designed the original mansion?
Yes.
Who?
It was,
Bingham?
Emerson.
what?
Bingham?
No, no.
Isn't it Emerson?
It was Emerson. Emerson, not Ralph Waldo, but I think it was his cousin or something. But it is designed by Emerson.
All right, thanks, Bob. Next on the agenda is 38 Wendell Park. Hey, good evening.
My name's Jim Pasquantonio, and I live at 38 Wendell Park.
Welcome, sir. What can you tell us about your project?
I'm putting a 28 by 32 addition off the back of the house, and all the drainage system from the roof drains are going to be into leaching drains, and none of the soils that we're going to be digging is going to be left on site. We're going to haul everything out and put all new stuff back in. by my own company.
All right, now,
I'm sorry, could you say that again? I didn't quite get that.
All the soils that we're going to be excavating out of the foundation area, we're going to dispose off of off-site, so nothing's left on the premises.
and I'm looking at a picture of the current plot plan. Can you tell us on this plan where you're going? Because it looks like you're significantly away from the brook.
So, I'm going to be going off the back of the house here. It's actually connecting off this corner here and stretching out 28 feet and back in on this corner.
All right.
The bottom level is going to be 32, but the top story is only going to be 24 feet. And it's quite a ways, and the stream is over here. Yeah, it's right here, but it's
Where's Canton Avenue? I don't know if the numbers go up or down.
So if this is Canton Ave, would be
Okay.
running this way here.
All right. So I'm just,
And I'm like 7 or 8 houses down on the left.
okay. And Elm Street would be over here?
Correct. Elm Street is over on this side.
All right.
The other side of Wendell is over on this right.
All right, has everybody seen this? This map, I mean, it's easy to look for. Now, this is from Alan Bishop?
Correct.
Is that correct? Who usually does a pretty good job for us. But it looks like it looks like it's outside of a jurisdiction. Does anybody think that it warrants a site walk?
I brought some pictures of the backyard and everything with me, if you wanted to see them.
Right, and this is,
I'd love to see them.
this is a notice of intent, so it's awfully close. I mean, and I salute you, sir, for filing the notice of intent, because a lot of people go the other way and they don't file. So we're grateful.
I just did an outline with the orange marks off the
Okay.
back of the house. We could see where it would be.
Uh-huh.
That's just the back to
But
the
there's no
drive.
wetland behind the property?
No,
The only
it's ju-
wetland
it's
is
the
the
stream.
stream on the other side of the
Yeah,
road?
and I planned on putting hay bales just in case we cross there. Which I don't have a problem with if a heavy rain did come. But I said, I want to dispose of everything anyways, just so that it doesn't become an issue.
You're a contractor or next?
Yeah. Well, I own Town Tree and Landscape, and it's a family-owned business.
Oh, okay.
So I will be doing most of it, except Bill.
The fact that it's on the other side of the
Yeah,
road?
doesn't look right. Doesn't look like him.
I think it's 90 feet to the...
It's 90 feet to the front of the house, right.
The back does not look right.
And I used to live on the other side of Elm Street. That picture, you can actually see through.
Yeah,
And there's no,
there's nothing.
There's no wetland. There's nothing. Well, the fact that it's on the other side of a public way,
Doesn't
I
look
mean,
right
the
at all.
road,
Nothing.
all right.
There's plenty of depth,
Any other questions?
none.
Are there butters or members of the public that would like to ask a question or make a comment? Seeing none, I don't think there's much return on investment in going to inspect this because it's so far out of our, it
Yeah.
appears to be
Don't think
completely
we
out of
need
our
to.
jurisdiction.
Doesn't look right.
I agree.
No. I agree.
So we can have a motion to issue a positive,
non-determination, or non...
it's not an RDA, it's actually a notice of intent, so we can issue an order of conditions to allow the project. Do we want to have the, well, the usual boilerplate will be in it anyway, so,
Right, the hay bales and,
right. The only thing that I'd be concerned about, and I'm sure you're familiar with this, is storage of equipment.
Yeah.
While you're building, we like to keep it out of the buffer zone.
Yeah.
So, but it looks like from your driveway, you can get your equipment into
It's
your
all in the
backyard.
It'll stay in the backyard. And I'm proposing to do it on a Friday and Saturday, and the equipment will be out, and they're gonna do the inspection on Monday for the town, and then put the footing in, inspection. So within 1 week, it's gonna be completely done and backfilled.
Walkout basement.
Yeah,
Great.
yep,
Good luck.
yeah. I don't hit water.
So what kind of trees are you going to plant from town tree and landscaping.
There's a good list that's going on there.
Okay.
All right.
The south side to get some shade, it does work.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So you got a motion?
Yep. Is there a motion to
Make a
approve the order of
motion.
conditions?
We
Yes.
issue.
Go
We
ahead.
approve this and issue an order of conditions for it.
Right.
I'll second.
Subject to the regular boilerplate.
Yes.
All right. Anything else? All right. Any discussion? All in favor? Done. All right. Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Okay.
Good luck.
Thanks.
It's nice when they're like that.
That's a good point you made, John, about the wisdom of coming anytime it's questionable rather than
Yes.
Absolutely.
after the fact.
All right, number 5 on the agenda is 0 Central Avenue, Town of Milton. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening.
Could you identify yourself for our record, please?
Katie Conlon, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen. Anne Marie Fagan, Town Administrator.
Welcome, welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. As the Commission knows, the Town Administrator and I, on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, have been engaged in extensive discussions with the principals of Carrick Realty Trust, which is the owner of the property at 131 Elliott Street, the other portion of the Henry's Building, about developing a mixed-use residential and commercial project at the site. We're pleased to report to you tonight that we in Carrick Realty Trust have had productive discussions, and our good faith belief is that we're close to an agreement relating to the transfer of the property to the Carrick Realty Trust. So we're requesting a continuance of our application until your next meeting.
Our next May meeting, or you're talking about our next public meeting, which is actually Saturday, the 18th of April?
Can we continue until Saturday?
Of course.
And we may need a further continuance until May, but if we could continue until Saturday, I think that would be helpful.
That'd be good. And just so that we can, I think it's more convenient to schedule it here,
Sure.
because otherwise we'd be on the sidewalk somewhere, and it would be easier for the public, if they wanted to participate, to know where to go. The timing will be difficult, so we'll have to get this up on the website, because we've got quite a list of places to see on Saturday.
This will be the end.
This will be the end, so we can complete here, so it's probably going to be
Noontime.
noontime.
Noontime?
It's
Well,
Don't count on that until you see it.
Yeah,
Kathy
it
will
might
post
be
it on the
later than
website
that.
as to the timing. But we're basically doing a big circle of the town. We start at 8, but we should be here in 4 hours,
I hope.
I hope.
yeah. I won't be surprised, though. I mean, we're starting out at Randolph, so that's going to be a chunk of time.
That's going to take 45 minutes, right?
I agree.
To an hour.
Yeah.
I agree. All right, so that's a ballpark
So that's 9
guesstimate of
o'clock,
time. But we will post the time in the agenda. We'll try to be as precise as possible on keeping the time.
And if I could have your cell phone number, then if we're running late, I can call you so you're not sitting here.
Okay, we'll provide you with that, Kathy. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, thanks. Logistical question, and you should probably all know this. Is the town hall open on Saturday morning normally, or can we make sure that it is open?
I was just writing that note, Mr. Chairman. It is not normally open on Saturdays, but we will have it open for you, and we will make sure we provide Kathy
I have
with
the
the cell phone numbers as well, so that she can keep us
Perfect.
abreast of the time frame.
And I do have a key to this building, just in case you guys are running late, or I can open the building.
Okay.
Could we do it at the library instead? The library's open. They've got a conference room downstairs.
Well, it doesn't matter to me.
Doesn't have to be in this building. So if it's easier to do it at the library because they're open, that would be another option, right?
And if they have space.
That's
Yeah,
the
we'd have to
thing,
get
whether or
the
not the
I don't know
rooms
if
are-
people sign up for the use of the
Yeah.
conference
They
room.
Yeah,
do.
you do.
Right.
And I think on Saturday, they do use it a lot
Yeah.
for,
It's pretty busy. I think this is a safe harbor.
Yes.
All right, we'll stay here then, okay?
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, 6, is the notice of intent, 131 Elliott Street. That's the demolition project, which will be followed by number 7, notice of intent, 131 Elliott Street, which is a site development project. I think they're right outside. Right.
you want this back, please?
Hi, good evening. Thank you. All right, welcome all. Could you identify yourselves, please, for the record?
Peter Freeman, attorney for the applicant.
Chris McCarthy with Allen and Major.
Stephen Connolly, applicant.
All right, welcome all. I know you've given us some materials of late, including the Phoenix report from, we received that this afternoon, which would be the water quality tests from the water pumped out at 131 Elliott Street back in May of 2014. But can you just go through the materials that you submitted to us, tell us what you have, and tell us what the significance is?
Sure, we'll have Chris McCarthy do that, and in addition to the Phoenix report, we indeed do want to go over the other information, which we believe is responsive to all of the things that were discussed and requested at the last hearing. So, Chris?
Do you want to touch on the water analysis first, or?
Sure.
Well, you know, we're...
But I know I have not read it.
Yeah, and we are not, you know, the water analysis testers by any, you know, stretch. All we can say is that, you know, we've looked at some of the numbers. Well, first of all, the bill of lading was allowed to be dumped. It wasn't at a hazardous dump site. It was at a regular waste treatment plant, which, you know, states right there that it was not hazardous material. And the other,
Okay. Chris, can I ask you about hazardous material? DEP definitions, is petroleum product outside of hazardous? Are they treated separately?
I'm not sure of that. Okay. I'm just looking at some of the results that came out of that test, which, by the way, that water doesn't exist on the site anymore. It's been dumped. It was dumped out previously.
Right, last May. Wasn't it?
Right. So, but what was in that, if it was not applicable or not
detectable,
the levels of some of the findings were still. We went on to the National Primary Drinking Water Regulations, and the levels fall below what is allowable for drinking water. Not that you'd want to drink this stuff, but on that first page, some of the key elements that were over the required limits still fell beyond the National Drinking Water Regulations. That's as much as I can really speak to on the water quality that was taken out of the basement.
Did Phoenix do a summary of the results?
Not in this report. They did not. You know,
We just have a tabular.
Yeah, and that's all.
Give
That's all
us-
they supplied. There was no letter saying, you know.
The results of the.
Steve, correct me. I think it was a verbal that everything was okay, other than, well, the facility that they had to report the test to was able to take them at the fluid.
We probably need some guidance on this. Many of these chemicals I can't even pronounce.
I know.
And just from the number of syllables in the chemicals, I wouldn't want to drink it.
Well,
Mr. Chairman, I'll see if I can follow up with RIS and EQ and see if I can get, if they have additional information on the findings on this.
Okay, that would be very helpful to us. 'Cause I know I can't interpret, at least at first blush, and as I said, I haven't read it. All right, well, thank you for getting that to us.
Okay. The other information we provided on the 2nd of April were answers to the 5 or so questions that you had wanted clarification of at the last hearing. I don't know if you've all had a chance to go through our responses. If you have any questions on those, we can go through them, or...
Can you just go through them? This is a public hearing, and it's actually being televised, so I think it would be important if you can just give us sort of bullet form information.
Yeah, the board had requested further information on the temporary filter dam that we were going to install as part of the demo to control any runoff from the site. So we provided construction details on that, as well as they requested photos of examples. So we've included those. I'll note those photos that we included in the document. Those are from a pond in Waltham that happens to be in the an ORW. It's actually the Cambridge Water drinking supply that pond is tributary to. So this is the exact same filter dam that they approved and that we would be using on site. I mean, certainly not as large,
Right.
but that's what it would look like. One of them, for an added measure, we put a row of hay bales on top of the dam in case there was, overspill on that. It was just one more line of protection. So we provided
What about the capacity? I saw that it was like 2,800 feet, but you only expected 600 feet?
I'm sorry?
There was a reference in the report here, I thought, that it was sized for 28 or 2,900 cubic feet?
21,000 is
21,000.
the storage of the
Gallons.
Gallons. Right. 21,000 gallons.
1,000 gallons.
Right, okay.
And they're talking about 600.
Well, 600 we're jumping now. The 600 gallons comes from the amount of water that we think that the misters are going to do for the dust control.
Right.
That's where the 500 to 600 gallons, and that's...
Right, no, I understood that, and I'm just trying to figure out how you got to the 21,000 gallon capacity. I don't know what
that
the
was based
storm...
on the watershed model that Phil Cordero couldn't be with us today. So he determined, based on, rain flows and the surface area, that in a 1.5-inch rain, that's what that basin can accommodate, assuming it's dry at the time that the rain starts.
What does a 1.5-inch rainstorm event represent in terms of a standard storm? To me, 1.5 inches sounds like a lot of, that's a significant storm.
It's between a 2 and a 5. Again, I'm not an engineer.
2 and a 5 year kind of storm.
I believe I can get a clarification.
It sounds like, to me, 1.5 inches sounds like a lot.
That's
I mean,
a lot.
That's a significant
It's a
event.
good storm, yeah.
Right.
And, like we've said, as we go through the process and we do the constant monitoring, if we have 1.5 inches rain, we're going to be out there making sure that everything's working fine. And, even if there was a SWIP on this, we'd have to go with a 1/2-inch rainfall to check it out. So we'll be out there on a weekly basis or bi-weekly or whatever it's going to be. So like I said, one of the questions, question 2, was the quantity of water during the demolition. We reached out to the demo contractor, RIS, and they estimated a typical job like this would be 500 gallons for the duration of the demo, not just in a day or a week. And if it was hotter months, it would be more like 600 gallons, but certainly not more than that. So we know that the basin can handle that if it was a dry period.
That's including the crushing?
Crushing, yeah, well, that's just for the dust control, the 600 gallons. Again, we're only taking it down to slab. So we're not crushing up the floor and all that.
It's superstructure only.
That's right.
Is the existing structure concrete? Is it steel, concrete, or do you know?
A mix of material.
It's a mix.
Yes.
But there is some concrete in that needs to be crushed. Okay.
Craig, was your question designed to differentiate between the water that's sprayed onto the building itself when it's being torn down, as opposed to the water being sprayed upon the crusher?
Right.
And would this figure of 500 to 600 gallons of water during the demo phase include both?
I believe that's how they quantified it. That's the answer they gave us. We put that out to them just as you were asking, so. We talked, 3 was about the storage of the basin. The water quality expected.
I appreciate the fact that I know what you just said, and we all do because we're reading it, but members of the public don't know what you just referred to. So question number 3 was to provide the volume of available water storage within the temporary basin.
Right, and the answer to that is 21,000 gallons before it would overtop, but at that point it would go to the second, third, and fourth measure of erosion control, the hay bales, the silt fence, the silt sacks, and the filter dam. So,
okay,
filter dam.
That's how the water is cleaned as it overtops, but where does it go?
Well, ultimately, it ends up in the system, into the silt sacks, into the catch basins.
Into the catch basin?
Right.
All right, and the catch basins take the water where?
To the deposit.
Is that a direct dump?
Well, it goes down Central Avenue, bangs are right under the tracks, and goes into Pine Tree Brook, and then a short little turn right into Neponset. The outlet is under the tracks
All right, and the catch basins that are receiving the water, do they have any kind of device?
They have hoods. That was a question that you had on coming up further in 6.
Number 6.
Okay.
The one at the corner of Elliott and the one on the corner of Central that these would go to, both have hoods.
Okay.
They were part of the new construction of the intersection back in 08 or whatever that was.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, keep going if you would, and I don't mean to slow you down.
No. The board had asked about the reasonable quality of the water that would get through to the filter dam and through the various methods of erosion control. It's hard to quantify, reasonable quality, but the Mass Stormwater regulations refer to total suspended solids, or TSS removal. And the threshold of post-construction will be 80%. The demolition of the building is not disturbing any site work. Like I said, we're getting down to slab. And the size of the sediments that would be going through would be controlled by the smaller stone, the Marafi, and the hay bales and the silt sacks, the silt fence. We know from prior subsurface exploration that down about 2 feet is coarse and medium sand. So the particle size of on that is like 1/4 to 1/2 millimeter, which the Marafi fabric would handle. So we know that, what's going to come out of that isn't really going to be silt-laden water. Now, it's not going to look clean. I mean, it's not going to look like drinking water, but it'll be cloudy. But that's acceptable. Stormwater standard. It's acceptable.
Is there any higher capacity filtration? Because we are dumping right into Pine Tree Brook.
Well, again, we're using 4 lines of defense on this thing, and again,
the hay bales doesn't take out much.
But it's the smaller stone, the 1.5-inch stone, which is going to stop the larger pieces. The Marafi is going to stop the smaller pieces. The larger stone is going to hold this whole thing in place. And then, as it spills out, then it's going to hit silt fence, hay bales. Then, as it gets through that, it's going to get to the catch basins through the silt sacks, which is like Marafi. So, the chances of muddy water coming out of this is slim to none.
You talked about, even in here, it refers to this as erosion control. And our concern, I mean, I have a concern about erosion control, but the bigger concern is about contaminants that might be in it due to the demolition and the filtration of it. And I understand that the level of filtration that you're doing. Mm-hmm. You mentioned earlier about monitoring and having someone on site to monitor the quality of the water that's actually going out into the storm, the catch basin. Can you define who that will be and how often they will do that? Because if we can show that the water that's coming out is clean by a standard, then that kind of alleviates a lot of the concerns. And knowing that we can show that that's at that point and have that test done, at least at the beginning of it and then periodically going forward, that resolves a lot of my concerns, and I believe that would resolve a lot of the concerns of the commission.
Yeah, I guess it's just to what level, your definition of monitoring and to what water quality you're looking for.
Sure.
I mean, if you go by DEP standards, we're doing the required amount.
But
you're approaching it from a best management practices approach, but our question is, and that's great. But I want to know what is the water that's actually making it through that? What is the total the suspended solids that are in that are being now discharged into the Pine Tree Brook and therefore into the Neponset? Just so that we know that we've hit a standard that's acceptable for that kind of a discharge, and understanding that the process, that the best management practices that you're putting in place are trying to achieve that. We're asking for some level of monitoring that will show that we are achieving that. That it's not a theoretical approach, but it's actually something that we can say, someone qualified to do testing of the water at the beginning of the process, when it gets going, we'll do it, and then periodically, if we show that it's good, we'll do it periodically going forward during the demolition. And once again, my concern is not so much the erosion, I mean, that is a concern, but the bigger concern is that we're not getting contaminants that are going to get through and cause us problems with the Pine Tree Brook, or bigger for me is the Neponset, because it's feeding down into the estuary.
Yeah, I mean, that would only get done by a water analysis company like that. We couldn't quantify that on our own.
Don't we have two issues here?
Yeah,
One,
we
the
do.
immediate construction, demolition or whatever.
Sure.
And an overall, this is gonna be here forever.
What's going to be here forever?
The water in this project's gonna be here forever. So, I mean, so they're talking about putting in Marafi fabric and whatever.
Yeah, but we're talking about demolition right now.
This is just demolition.
This is demolition.
Yeah.
So the control mechanisms that they've proposed for the parking areas and the filtration going in during construction, that's another discussion during the development phase, or the construction
Does this
phase.
have to go to the MWRA?
I don't know.
I mean, because what they're talking about is, even during construction, you cannot get constructing a new connection into the town drainage system.
No, what they're proposing, correct me if I'm
Right.
wrong, what they're proposing is to use the existing,
Well, put a new pipe in.
That's in the proposed development,
not the demolition.
not the demolition.
You're not gonna have anything from the demolition go into Pine Tree Brook or into the Neponset.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, but they're gonna use the existing catch basin. They're gonna feed the existing piping system through the existing catch basin, and all the filtration that's leading up to that catch basin is what we're talking about. And then what I'm talking about is, can we get that water that's going into the catch basin, after it's gone through all of this filtration?
Yep.
Do an analysis of that water at the beginning, when it starts to flow, so we can say, this is effective. And that's, I think we're being realistic. I mean, I think we're being, I don't find that is burdensome in terms of expecting to show that it's being effective.
I mean, in theory, I mean, there will be water in the sumps of those basins that we could probably take out. I just don't know the process from that point and who we would send it to. Maybe Phoenix, I guess. We'd have to, if you agree to, we'd have to get an answer for that.
I have a question too, because you've described a filtration system for removing suspended solids. Right, but my concern is that I don't know what these chemicals are, but these would not necessarily be picked up by any one of the 4 filtration systems.
But they're gone, either they're gone now, or if there's water in there again, they're gonna be taken out by the same method before they take the building down. They don't wanna work in a puddle.
But, yeah, but that's my concern, that if there's something in the building itself that's creating whatever this is, and I don't know if it's good, bad, or indifferent, but I do distinguish between the petroleum-based hydrocarbons and hazardous waste, because DEP treats petroleum products and hazardous waste differently. So if this is not hazardous and it might have been dumped in a licensed landfill, that's fine, but it's not fine for Pine Tree Brook. So
Well, it wasn't a licensed
that's why we need to
landfill.
know what these chemicals are. And I know you can't answer it, and I sure can't answer it, but we need some help in trying to figure out what this is, because we don't want to be dumping, PCBs into Pine Tree Brook and then into the deposit.
That gets back to the narrative that you requested earlier.
Yeah.
Yes.
But,
Right?
yeah, I think you're right, but doesn't this show that there isn't that condition going on? Doesn't this in itself show that?
I don't know. I'm looking at some of the, we've got some levels of chemicals above the norm, or above the, whatever the reference dose is.
Sure.
But I just don't know the significance of it. I mean, there must be, I don't know,
The variance.
200 chemicals listed here.
Plus it's a year old.
So in the demolition, during the demolition process, all of the equipment, generators, transformers, standing equipment is all removed prior to the demolition of the building. So we shouldn't have any concern about chemicals within the equipment being released during the process. We're basically talking about a shell of a building, structure, concrete, steel, wood.
Correct.
We're not talking about electrical lighting fixtures, we're not talking about transformers, we're not talking about anything like that.
Right, that all gets taken out or has been taken out.
They've already been gutted, so
Yeah.
we're down to a dirty structure, but
That's right.
still a structure.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So do you feel like the description of this report, the narrative of that report will give you the level of review that you're asking, in terms of understanding of the chemical?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
Remember, this water came from what I call the swimming pool, which is basically the foundation,
Right.
the basement.
The
It's just
basement.
sitting there, and what was it, 20,000 gallons?
Yeah, close to it. right.
Taken out of there? All right.
Right.
So we just need some level of assurance that we're not dumping the wrong kind of thing into Pine Tree Brook and the Ponset River. But I think that's pretty straightforward and pretty easy to do.
Like I said, I'll circle back and see what they have for a summary
Okay,
of what that is.
perfect, thank you. Chris, I didn't mean to shut you off.
Not at all. The board wanted details of duration of demolition and anticipated sound levels. The duration of the demolition is approximately 4 weeks. This will allow for the removal of the structure in coordination with the MBTA. Quantifying the actual sound levels during construction is difficult without engaging an acoustic engineer to establish a baseline. But the RIS anticipates using hydraulic excavators to create an entry point into the structure so that they can try to work within it as much as possible, which would, muffle some of the sounds as much as possible, at least while some of the walls were still up. But we can't guarantee, no noise during this. Obviously, there's going to be noise. But we can assert that all work will be performed